Have you ever stopped to consider that the only thing preventing you from living the life you've always dreamed of might simply be the fact that you haven't made a decision? Sounds absurd, right? But think about it, billions of people spend their entire lives saying they want to change, that they want more money, that they want freedom, but they remain stuck in the same place. And what's worse, they often believe they have no choice. But I'm going to prove to you that there's a single habit that, if you adopt it starting today, absolutely everything in your life can change. I remember a pivotal moment that marked not only humanity but also taught me one of the greatest lessons of my life. It was in 1962, when President John F. Kennedy uttered those words that echoed around the world: "We choose to go to the moon." He didn't have the resources, there wasn't enough technology, nobody knew exactly how it would be done. Still, he made a decision. And that decision changed everything. Have you noticed how most people don't truly decide? They believe they decide, but in practice, they only choose between small, safe options. When it comes to big decisions, the ones that can transform life, they back down. How many times have you thought about changing careers, starting a business, or investing in something new, and at the same time, told yourself, "It's not the right time yet, I need to wait until I have more money, more time, or support"? The big question is that this moment never arrives. Time passes, years fly by, and you remain exactly where you were. That's exactly what I realized over the years: few people truly learn to decide. When you decide definitively, irrevocably, you're creating a turning point. Decision is the spark that ignites the entire process of change. The problem is that we were taught to believe that we first need to have all the resources at our disposal before acting. It's a trap. If Kennedy had waited for perfect conditions to announce the moon landing, perhaps we would never have taken that step. He didn't wait for the resources, he decided first. And that's precisely where life transforms. A true decision doesn't depend on the how. It only depends on the "I want" and "I will." When you do that, the path begins to open. It's as if the universe is waiting for your command to move the pieces that were stopped. But while you hesitate, while you think of the 1,000 reasons why you can't, nothing happens. How many people do you know who complain about their job, their relationship, their lack of money, and yet continue to repeat the same actions every day? They don't change because they've never truly decided. And here's the truth: if you don't decide, someone else will decide for you. Your boss, the government, society, time, and you become a hostage. I experienced this myself. In the beginning, when I worked as a firefighter in Toronto, I was trapped in a routine that led nowhere. I had no training, no prospects. I could have stayed there, complaining about the lack of opportunities, but I made a decision. I quit my job and started my own business. I didn't know how it would work out, but I decided. And that decision led me to results I would never have achieved if I had waited for the perfect moment. Now think about yourself. How many times have you said, "One day I'll do this," and that day never came? Have you noticed how there always seems to be a logical justification for postponing? I need to save more money, I need more stability, I need more support. But tell me, what if what's really missing isn't any of that, but simply a firm decision? Studies show that only 3% of people truly live the way they want to, with the freedom to choose where to live, travel wherever they wish, and drive the car they dream of. Only 3%. This means that the vast majority spend their lives justifying why they can't have what they want, when, in fact, what's missing isn't money, it isn't time, it isn't opportunity. What's missing is decision. Deciding is an act of power. It's a point of no return. When you decide, there are no more excuses, there's no turning back. You put your foot down and declare, "This is what I want, and that's where I'm going, no matter what." And, at that very moment, your life begins to align with this new choice. Fear may still be there, doubt may still be there, but the energy begins to move in your favor. That's why I say, make decision a habit. Don't wait for the perfect scenario, because it will never exist. If you decide today, now, everything starts to change. If you continue waiting, you'll only repeat the same results from the past. So tell me, have you decided what you really want from life, or are you still deceiving yourself with small choices that don't transform absolutely anything? Money, this is one of the greatest fears and, at the same time, one of the greatest desires of people. The truth is that most people live with the feeling that it is scarce, difficult, almost impossible to achieve in large quantities. We grow up hearing phrases like, money doesn't grow on trees, you have to work hard to earn every penny, those who get rich quickly, get rich wrongly. These beliefs become so deeply ingrained that even when someone earns more, they feel guilt, fear of losing, or simply spend everything to return to the same point as before. But what few understand is that money is just energy. It flows to those who know how to attract it and, above all, to those who make the decision to receive it without resistance. I remember when I started to realize this in practice. Before, I had no ambition, I didn't believe in myself. I worked in small jobs, changing tires, washing cars, spending whole days exhausted and earning almost nothing. The problem wasn't the work itself, but my mentality. I thought I could never go beyond that. When I changed my way of thinking, money started to arrive in ways I could never have predicted. And that's when I understood, it's not about fighting for money, it's about attracting money. Most people are slaves to the excuse, I can't, because I don't have money. Have you noticed how this phrase is repeated? I can't buy the house of my dreams because I don't have money. I can't travel because I don't have money. I can't start my business because I don't have money. And yet, they never stop to reflect that money doesn't appear before the decision, it appears afterward. You don't need money to decide, you need the decision for the money to come. Recent studies on financial behavior show that more than 60% of people live in debt not because they earn little, but because they don't know how to direct their resources to what they really want. The fear of losing makes them cling to what little they have, and this attachment blocks the flow of abundance. It's like holding your breath, how long can you do it before you suffocate? Money is the same, it needs to circulate, it needs to flow. Think how many times you've seen someone win the lottery and lose everything in a few years. This doesn't happen by chance, but because the person's mentality hasn't changed. Without decision, without clarity, without awareness, money escapes. On the other hand, there are people who started from scratch and built fortunes simply because they decided they wouldn't accept less than they desired. Oprah Winfrey, for example, was born in extremely humble conditions, suffered abuse, faced rejection, and yet, she decided she would create a life of abundance. Today, she is one of the most influential and wealthiest women in the world. It wasn't luck. It was decision and a change of mentality. Have you noticed that, for many, talking about money creates discomfort? It's almost like a taboo. This happens because we were conditioned to believe that desiring wealth is selfishness or greed. But think, how can you help others if you can't even help yourself? How can you provide security for your family if you live in constant insecurity? How can you contribute to larger causes if you can barely pay your bills? Money, in the right hands, is a tool of expansion, freedom, and purpose. I want you to reflect now, how many times have you stopped living something because you believed you didn't have enough money? How many dreams have you kept in a drawer because you thought they were too expensive? Was the problem really the money, or was it simply the lack of decision to go after what you desired? If you don't decide that you are worthy of wealth, you will never find it. Money is not the enemy, it is only a reflection of what you believe about yourself. If you think you can't, you won't. If you think it's difficult, it will be difficult. But if you decide that you deserve it and that you will find it, it begins to appear in opportunities, ideas, connections, unexpected situations. And that's when everything changes. So tell me, do you want to continue believing that money is an obstacle, or are you willing to decide that it is only an ally to create the life you've always wanted? Everything in the universe is in constant motion. Nothing remains still. Each particle, each object, each thought vibrates at a certain frequency. This is a natural, immutable law, and you are subject to it, whether you believe it or not. The big problem is that most people always live at the same frequency, repeat the same thoughts every day and, consequently, continue creating the same results year after year. That's why you see so many people starting the year full of goals, full of energy, saying, this time it will be different, but when December arrives, they are at the same point they started, or even worse. The explanation is simple, they remain connected to the same vibration of the past. What you think generates feelings, feelings create actions, and actions bring results. If you keep thinking the same way, you keep feeling the same way, and inevitably, acting the same way. Therefore, the results don't change. It's a vicious cycle. You've probably experienced this. You decide to save money, but you keep thinking about scarcity, and before you know it, you find ways to spend it all. Or you say you'll change careers, but you continue vibrating with insecurity, fear, and lack of confidence, and end up going back to the same job you hate. I only understood this truth when, still very young, I worked as a firefighter in Toronto. I had no prospects, no formal education. If someone looked from the outside, they would say I was doomed to live that way forever. But something happened. I came across the book, Think and Grow Rich, and it opened up a space in my mind that I didn't even know existed. It was like I'd changed radio stations inside my own head. I left the fire department and, even without experience, started my first business. I had no idea how it would work out, but I changed my frequency. And the result? In less than a year, I had earned over $100,000. I hadn't changed the outside world, I changed the way I thought, and that change raised my vibration. That's what brought new opportunities and results. You need to understand that every desire, every goal, exists at a specific frequency. If you desire abundance but keep thinking about debt, you keep vibrating at the frequency of scarcity. It's like trying to tune a radio station to 99.1 FM when the music you want is playing on 104.3 FM. No matter how much you turn the dial on 99.1, you'll never hear the right music. Similarly, no matter how hard you work, if your mind remains trapped in thoughts of fear and doubt, you will never attract prosperity. There's a fascinating study conducted by the Harvard Business School that shows that people who remain trapped in cycles of financial worry end up making worse decisions in all areas of life. They can't see opportunities, they don't take risks, they don't innovate. This is because the fear of scarcity lowers the frequency of their thoughts, as if limiting their vision of the world. In contrast, when someone begins to think more abundantly, even if they don't have money in their pocket, the brain expands, new connections are created, and decisions become much more effective. Think how many times you've caught yourself saying, "I don't know how to do this." That's the frequency of fear. The secret is not knowing how, but changing the vibration to a state of certainty. When you believe you already possess it, that you are already on your way, you automatically connect to the frequency of what you desire. And when that happens, ideas that you couldn't see before begin to emerge. People appear, unexpected opportunities arise, and you have the feeling that everything conspires in your favor. The truth is that most people want to achieve goals that are at a much higher frequency than the one they live in today. They want abundance, but they vibrate with worry. They want freedom, but they vibrate with insecurity. They want love, but they vibrate with neediness. There's no way to attract something elevated while you remain at a low level. You need to decide to move, and that starts within your mind. So tell me, at what frequency have you been vibrating? Are you repeating the results of the past, trapped in the cycle of fear, or are you willing to adjust your tuning to access a new level of life? Imagination is the most powerful tool you have, but one you probably never learned to use consciously. Since childhood, we've been encouraged to dream, but as we grow older, school, society, and even family have taught us to be grounded, to be realistic, not to daydream too much. And that's exactly where we begin to limit ourselves. Einstein said that imagination is more important than knowledge, because knowledge is based on what already exists, while imagination creates what doesn't yet exist. And if you stop to observe, everything that is now part of your reality was once only someone's imagination. The cell phone you carry, the car you drive, the house you live in, even the chair you're sitting in right now. Someone imagined it before it became real. The problem is that most people only imagine difficulties. They lie down to sleep and mentally build scenarios of fear, the bill they can't pay, the debt that increases, the chance of losing their job. They spend hours imagining exactly what they don't want, and then wonder why they continue to attract more of the same. The mind doesn't differentiate between imagination and reality. If you repeatedly create negative images, your body reacts, your emotions drop, and your actions become limited. And when this is repeated, the results are inevitably the same as what you projected. Now think of someone like Steve Jobs. He didn't know how he was going to build a technology empire when he started. He didn't have all the pieces of the puzzle. But he had such a clear vision in his mind that he could convince other people to believe along with him. He used imagination as a tool of creation, not as a space of fear. The result is that the vision became reality. He didn't wait to understand the how. He trusted the image. Have you ever wondered what image you hold within yourself? When you think about the future, do you see yourself in abundance, living freely, doing what you love, or do you continue to see yourself trapped in bills, debt, a job you can't stand? It's important to understand that the image you hold today is shaping your tomorrow. If your vision is small, the results will also be small. If your vision is limited, your life will be limited. I remember when I started imagining a lifestyle completely different from the one I had. At the time, it didn't make any sense. I had no education, no contacts, no money. But I started visualizing myself traveling, living in better places, helping other people change their own lives. And gradually, I began to act as if I were already that person. When you see yourself in the future and bring that image to the present, something powerful happens, your choices change. You stop acting like someone limited and start acting like someone expanding. There is research in positive psychology that shows that people who visualize goals daily have up to 30% more chances of achieving them than those who do not practice this habit. This doesn't happen by magic, but because the mind begins to believe that it is already possible, and the body begins to act in alignment with that belief. The brain literally creates new neural connections that direct your behavior towards what you imagine with clarity and emotion. So, if you still think that imagination is something childish or useless, you are wasting the greatest tool you possess. The difference between remaining trapped in the reality you already know and creating a completely new life lies in the quality of the images you hold within yourself. The question is, have you been using your imagination to expand your life or to reinforce the same old limits? When you make the decision to pursue something big, something that completely escapes what is common, you need to be prepared to face doubtful looks, criticism, and even ridicule. The truth is that most people don't understand those who dare to think bigger. They prefer to stay in their comfort zone, following the crowd, repeating what everyone else does. And when someone appears saying they're going to break that pattern, they automatically think, he's gone crazy. I experienced this firsthand. When I decided to leave the stability of the fire department to open my own business, people's reaction was almost unanimous. They said I was making a mistake, that it was too risky, that it didn't make sense. Some even laughed at my decision. But I knew that if I listened to the opinion of the majority, I would be condemning my future to be the same as the past. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting even when fear is still present. Fear will be there. It whispers in your ear, what if it goes wrong? What if you lose everything? What if you can't do it? But courage answers, what if it goes right? What if I achieve the life I've always wanted? It is in this answer that transformation lies. Fear will always try to hold you back, but only courage liberates. Nelson Mandela once said that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. That is one of the greatest truths that exist. Perhaps you've been through this. You wanted to change jobs, but you were afraid of instability. You wanted to start a project, but you were afraid of failing. You wanted to end a relationship that wasn't good for you, but you were afraid of loneliness. And because of that fear, you remain trapped in situations that no longer represented you. Now think, how much time have you already lost listening to fear? How many years of your life have been consumed by hesitation? There is research published by Psychological Science that shows that people regret much more the things they didn't do than the things they did and went wrong. In other words, it's better to err by trying than to live with the weight of never having tried. Because when you try, you learn, you grow, you strengthen. When you don't try, you only grow older carrying regret. I remember one night when I lay awake in bed, thinking about everything that could go wrong when I made the decision to leave the security of a steady job. Fear consumed me, almost paralyzed me. But there was a small voice inside me saying, if you don't do this now, you'll spend your whole life wondering what it would have been like. And that's the voice I chose to listen to. That was courage. It wasn't because the fear vanished, but because I chose not to let it dictate my life. And you know what happens when you summon that courage? The world begins to open up before you. Supportive people emerge, opportunities arise, doors swing open. But none of that happens first. The courageous decision comes first, the results follow. It's like walking down a dark road, you can't see the entire path, but each step illuminates the next. What I want you to understand is that courage isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Without it, you remain trapped in the life you already know. With it, you have the chance to live a life that seems impossible today. So tell me, will you continue to listen to fear, or are you willing to act with courage, even if no one around you understands your choice? Everything I've shared so far boils down to a single point: the decision. It's the decision that determines the course of your life. But I'm not talking about that superficial decision you make in the morning and change by night. I'm talking about the real, definitive, irrevocable decision, the one where you eliminate any possibility of turning back. When you truly decide, the past loses its power over you. You create a new starting point. It's like closing a door forever and opening another that leads in a completely different direction. That's exactly what happened to me when I left the fire department. I didn't have a college degree, I had no business experience, I didn't have a detailed plan for how I would thrive. But I decided. And from that moment on, everything began to change. People I never imagined meeting appeared, opportunities one would never have seen began to arise, and I paved my way. Decision creates movement. When you decide, the world begins to reorganize itself around you. Many people believe they need to wait for ideal conditions to make a decision, to wait to have more money, more time, more support, more knowledge. But the truth is exactly the opposite. Ideal conditions only appear after the decision. How many times have you said, "I'll start when I have money"? But if you never decide to start, the money never comes. "I'll change when I have time." But the time never appears because you continue to spend your energy on what you don't love. The decision is the key that unlocks all of this. There's a phrase I've never forgotten: the moment your belief aligns with your desire, you merge with it. That's the instant everything begins to manifest. When you truly decide, your mind tunes into the frequency of the result you want. And when you're on that frequency, you begin to act as if you were already the person you need to be to achieve it. This change in behavior attracts new circumstances, new people, new opportunities. I know this might sound almost like magic, but it's not. It's science. Physics has already proven that everything is energy, including your thoughts. When you change the energy you emit, you also change what you attract. And that's what I've experienced many times in my life. I've seen money start arriving from unexpected sources, businesses multiply, travel and experiences become possible, all because I had made an undeniable decision. What you need to understand is that committing to a decision changes your identity. You cease being someone who merely desires and become someone who acts as if they've already achieved it. This internal shift is so powerful that even the people around you notice. Some may even distance themselves because they won't understand. Others will draw closer because they'll feel the strength of your conviction. But, one way or another, your reality begins to transform. Now I want to propose something to you. Think of something you've put off for months, maybe even years. Something you know, deep down, would advance your life, but you've never had the courage to decide on. It could be starting a business, changing careers, returning to school, starting a personal project, or even moving to a new city. Choose one of these things now. And for the next 30 days, act as if you've already decided. Feel what it would be like to live that reality. Take small daily actions, even if you don't yet see the complete path. If you do this with conviction, you'll notice that invisible forces begin to work in your favor. This is the habit that can change absolutely everything, transforming decision into a lifestyle. It's not about waiting for the right time, it's about creating the right time. Because when you truly decide, the impossible ceases to exist. So tell me, will you continue to procrastinate, or will you make the decision today that can completely change your life? Nothing changes until you decide to change. The decision is the trigger, the seed that makes everything else flourish. No matter where you are now, no matter how many difficulties you've faced so far, if you make a true, undeniable decision, your life will inevitably begin to move in a new direction. And if you felt that this message resonated with you, I want to invite you to continue this journey. The next video is already on your screen, and in it you'll climb another step in your wisdom evolution to become 1% better than you are now. Thank you for being here with me today, and I'll see you in the next video.